Hello survivors and welcome to another Walking Dead Road to Survival video, and in this video I'm going to be doing a guide for S Class Magna. I have been meaning to do this for a little while and have had some requests, so we're going to get out the way right now. We have got S Class Magna, who was one of the most recent offensive promos, who probably is kind of game changing. Everyone knows the power she brings to the table. I did go over her rush, her active, her leader skill, and pretty much her entire kit in my preview video. It is worth going over that video because there are some, small things that I do note in that I'm not going to talk about in this. This is going to be purely about her kit and how I think you should build her, not about how things will work. I do show how her rush works, how her active works, so on and so forth. We're gonna go over her skills though, and when it comes to her rush, I would say definitely max this out. There's generally not gonna be a situation where maxing out someone's rush is not the way to go, but there could be now and again. But this is not gonna be one of those characters. 10 out of 10, 100% get that maxed out. Superior shots for sure. You want to get those double shots up. Now when it comes to the active, again, I would say you want to max this out as well. Generally speaking, Magna is going to be an offensive character, attack team mainly, and this is going to give you the option to get her rush on the first turn because she gains 100% AP turn 1. She also gets some resists in there, but it's mainly that 100% AP offensively that's going to be great. It means you can command her turn 1 and just rush instantly. If you're against a team with no real danger when it comes to specialists, that's going to be absolutely fine. There are people who build teams like that as it is for Priya, for instance, and you have to use other characters to make Priya rush turn 1. Magna can just do it by herself with a command. So definitely max out these two. You're going to get the best out of Magna on an attack team like this. Now, could she be used on a defense team? Potentially, but again, you kind of have to max out that active to get the full potential there because she's going to get taken out quickly and you want her to rush turn 1 if you are going to use her on a defense team. Now when it comes to her combat mods, there's two ways you can go on this. If you do want to keep her as a single target hitter, where you're not going for a rampage weapon in the 4 slot on her weapon, you want to go crit set. You're going to get the best single target damage out of it that way. I am going to do a video in the future just to prove this, but you want to go with crit set. There's multiple reasons because of this. I've talked about it in the past, but single target damage with crit set, when you're hitting crits, you're going to do more damage. It's as simple as that. But also, you generally only got a couple of characters that are going to use crit set mods because there's only a few that can utilize it on their rush, and that's generally the people who you want to utilize it on. Because there's so few to use it on, you're generally going to have better mods in that crit set. Higher attack stat mods that you can use, higher crit mods, higher attack versus, and you're going to have a really buffed out character that way. If you're using 10 characters as attack set, you're going to have a lot of good attack set mods, and you're generally not going to have as many. However, I do think Magna's better used as a rampage character, where you have rampage in the 4 slot, be it on her base weapon or be it on a weapon that you're going to swap into her hand. So we're going to primarily be doing a build for that because I think the majority of people who get Magna are going to use her that way, and that would be attack set for sure, because rampage damage, the extra damage, does not crit. It doesn't get any multipliers, so you just want to increase the base attack stat as much as possible. So this is kind of obvious. Attack on attack is a good way to go. You could balance out the stats a little bit. I do not use attack on my Priya because it doesn't give that much attack stat unless you've got a platinum mod. If you do have a platinum mod, you can use an off trait mod. You don't have to use attack set for attack mods because obviously you're going to get a lot more attack stat that way. You can get 1,000 attack, you'll lose like 100 based on it not having the 5 set bonus versus the 4 set bonus. So it is definitely worth doing that. But if you want to go for attack on attack, that's a good way to go. Now the attack versus is a little bit more interesting. It's basically what you think you're going to come up against the most with Magna, or what trait you are noticing is like the most defensive. She is going to do extra damage against alert characters already, and I would say it's generally better to do bonus damage against another trait with someone who's got rampage, just because then you could spread the damage around a bit. Is she your anti-Jacki team? Well, then you can go for attack versus fast in this situation. Is Jacki something that you're not noticing as much? But you're maybe taking her in against, let's say, Pete teams, you know, over a lot of the range teams, you might want to go for attack versus tough. And that is the way we're going to go here, is we're going to go attack versus tough, but you can pretty much do whatever you want here. I'm going to do attack versus tough here, and it's mainly because the amount of teams that have tough characters on defense. There is a lot of free-to-play characters that are tough, and doing extra damage against those is beneficial. Now, when it comes to the resist mod, Magna is a character that actually gives herself a couple of resists. She gets confused resist from her leader skill for the first turn, and she also gives herself bleed resist on her active. You don't have to resist that, you know, you're going to have 100% resist on her active for 2 turns. You're going to be fine. She is a multi-hit rusher, and that means if she hits someone who has stun on defense, she is going to get stunned. And this is probably the best way to go, just because after that first takedown, she is going to prioritize other alert characters. So if you can avoid that, it is generally a good idea. So the basic mods, the first 3, I would go something like this. The attack versus kind of up to you though, just whichever trait you think other than alert you're facing the majority of the time. Now in the next 2 mods, there's kind of 2 ways you can go this. You can go a more basic attack damage, and that would be like doing another attack versus another trait. That isn't necessarily a bad thing. Let's like say attack versus fast. That means you're effectively doing trait damage to 3 traits. That's a lot of damage output potentially. You can only really do this while she's holding a rampage weapon if she has got 4 characters around her with 15-35 weapons. That means 15% attack and 35 crit, because she's going to sacrifice a crit mod in that situation. Now she is only hitting twice with that rush, so it isn't like prayer where you can hit twice, hit crits, and then the last one doesn't hit a crit and it's not as bad. In this, you have to hit crits as often as possible. A non-crit on a Magna rush on one of her 2 hits will be really obvious that the damage is going to be massively reduced there. And because of that, I would say going for a crit mod would be a good way to go. You want to make sure she can hit crits. It might only be a couple of percentage more. The higher your crit goes, the less beneficial it is. For instance, the first 10 crit is the most powerful crit. The next 10 is not as powerful as the first 10, but it stacks. And it just keeps on going like that. So like before, if you hit 100, it was 100% crit chance, pretty much. Whereas now, if you hit 100, it's probably closer to like 60% or 65%. And then when you hit 200 crit, you're probably at like 85% crit. You know, it does drastically fall off, but you still will get more crit. And that means you're going to crit more often. Now in the last slot, there is 2 ways you can go here. You can try and amplify your rampage damage, or you can try and amplify your single target damage. If you want to amplify the actual target that she's going to be hitting, even though so far in this kit we've actually been boosting the rampage damage drastically, this is the one that is going to happen every time, regardless of what team you face, and it would be crit multiplier. If you have this mod, this is going to happen regardless of what setups you face, regardless of what defense weapons you face. This is going to happen every time she crits. She's going to crit for more damage. It's going to only happen on the target of her basic attacks and her rushes, however. Like I said before, rampage attacks do not crit. However, if you wanted to cheese it a little bit, and I do like to cheese it a little bit on my prayer, and amplify her rampage attack damage a bit more, and that would be attack while impaired. And this actually works on characters on first turn attack teams, because especially on multi-hit rushes like Priya, like Magna, when you attack somebody who has got impair on defense and you get impaired, the follow-up hits are going to have amplified damage, quite significant amplified damage as well. In this case, it would be an extra 82% attack. That would be like effectively getting the buff from Kenny just off your mod, which is nuts. Now the downside of Magna is she does only hit twice, so the first hit has to get her impaired to get the second hit to be amplified, but it also works on basic attacks. I've taken out full defense teams just with basic attacks on an impaired character. It is that powerful. As long as you hit those rampages, massive amount of damage increase. So as we lock that in, we get the 650% bonus. Her attack stat has gone up to 7.1k, but I have upgraded her base weapon a little bit already. We'll look at how it starts off. It is the 30% attack, a medium bonus to AP when attacking, and when attacking, 100% chance to cause normalize for 2 turns to a target enemy. This character gets Guardian Shield. Now, there's only really one way you can upgrade this. It is just basically making it max attack that you can get, AP on attack, and in the 4th slot, this is the option, but Rampage is probably the way to go on the base weapon if you want to use the normalize. If you don't want to use the normalize, I would still upgrade the first slot and give a huge bonus to AP when attacking, and then just leave it as a 5-star weapon and then put a double attack rampage weapon in her hands. Now, if you saw my video about how to get a rampage weapon, you'll see my upgrade process in how to actually get a rampage weapon. I would definitely follow that for an additional weapon, like a side weapon to put into Magna's hands. However, if you want to do it on Magna's base weapon, there are some things that you'd want to do the same. As I said in that video, if you want to keep the 3rd slot on an attached weapon, you can just go all in on the attack upgrades rather than going for huge AP on attack on the base weapon. So the initial upgrades would look something like this. When you're going for Rampage, you'd want to get it to 45% attack first, and as I said in that video, it's mainly just to minimize the RNG potential. When you get Rampage in that 4th slot, you're only going for 1 upgrade on the attack, and that's where you want the least possible RNG. You don't want to have 46% like I have had unfortunately on 1 or 2 weapons. You want to have that 48% minimum, 50% ideal. You can get a very large bonus to AP instead of a medium bonus, and it would still be fine. But what you could also do is you could go for a weapon that has 55% attack, forget the medium bonus to AP when attacking, and just put a rampage weapon on it. You could even do that with a double attack weapon, like a very specialized weapon for Magna where it has a little bit more damage, 55% over 50%, because she can get a 1st turn rush, and you can use that in like arenas and stuff where you know you're not coming up against specialists that would be problematic for you. But that would be a very niche weapon, pretty much just for Magna or any other 66 AP characters that come out, because those are the only characters that can get a natural turn 3 rush with a medium bonus to AP when attacking. So after fully upgrading the weapon, you can see I did get that 48% unfortunately, but we've of course got the Rampage, so it's not really worth resetting this. It could take 30, 40 more goes to get Rampage, so I would sacrifice the little bit of attack just to keep that Rampage. Now you can see her attack stat when we put her in a team, with the weapon and her leader skill on top of the mods, and her base attack stat goes up to 14,676. This is a lot of attack stat, obviously, huge amount of damage. Now we want to amplify that as much as possible. If you want to utilize a 1st turn rush, you want to get that up as high as possible. Ideally, you'd want to put a double attack rampage weapon in her hands if you have one. And from my rampage video, I still obviously have 2 on this test region, so I could either put this one in her hands, which would be the base one, or the fully advanced version, which we are going to put in her hands, is the one that's going to give the best amount of attack. I think she requires this one more than Priya does because she hits less times, so you do want her to get her crit stat up for her 2nd hit and do as much damage with those rampage attacks as possible. Priya has the benefit of hitting 3 times, so there is a little bit of a difference there. And with that weapon now in her hands, with just a little bit more of a boosted attack because of the 50%, it goes up to 14,854. Now it doesn't matter too much what characters you use around Magna. The only important thing is they have 1535 weapons. That is that 4 slot there. Give 15% attack and 35 crit to this character and all adjacent teammates. If all 4 of the teammates have that, you'll see attack stat of Magna get massively boosted to 25,100 in this case. The only important character to take is a command, is Rick. That's the character you want to take. If you do have multiple Magnas, I would take a 2nd one with normalize, just so that if you do come up against payback, for instance, you can normalize the payback with 1 Magna and then let the other Magna just get their 1st turn rush after doing the active and being commanded. Now the reason we've got S Class Shane in here, this actually was brought to my attention by Camille, and if we look at his active, it up to 3 teammates get 50% attack and focus for 2 turns. This has an initial cooldown of turn 1, so this character is really good for 1st turn attack teams. It's nowhere near the power of Kenny's, but Kenny's is a turn 2, whereas obviously this is turn 1. So we're just going to run this against like a basic peak team that we see quite a lot. You're going to do the active with Shane. It does go to Magna. We're going to give Magna her rush, command her, and then the idea is we're going to focus the Frost because he has impair on defense. As you can see in that 3rd slot, when being attacked, a better chance to impair the enemy and get elusive for 3 turns. There could be another character, for instance, the princess also has an impair weapon, but we're going to focus the Frost. We hope that she gets impaired on that 1st attack, and we can see if it happens. She does get impaired on the 1st attack. And as you can see, she hit for 100k, 100,000 on her second attack, just because that attack stat was so high. Now, even though she's got 4 1535 weapons around her and a crit mod on her, she did not hit crits on those 2 attacks. This is the biggest downside of Magna, is that if she doesn't hit that crit, she actually cannot take out the entire team. It's actually impossible, because if you don't hit a crit on both attacks, you can only hit 4 characters if you rampage once. You can take down 1 character on the first attack, the second attack will take down the other character, and then the rampage will take down 2 more. There'll be still 1 character left over. So on first turn teams, you might run into issues, even if you have got massive attack stat on your characters, in terms of actually getting those first turn wins, which is going to be an issue. You have to kind of be lucky in those situations. So we're going to come up against the same team again, just to show you like a best case scenario. She's going to get active once more, and she's going to get the attack buff, sorry, of Shane once more. She's going to do it active. We'll focus on the Frost. This time she does take out the entire team, which means she did hit it, and she got impaired off the first attack. You can just see the damage output is nuts. If we look at the victory screen, this is a friendly duel, so you can see I just did 80k damage off the first turn, and that's just because of the attack while impaired, the extra damage you can do against characters once that happens. Now, when it comes to taking on Jacki Teams, I do not think that her first turn rush potential is going to be as good. I think it's better to drop down to the normalized weapon just to utilize, taking out someone's specialist skill. Extremely powerful, and that would mean you want to swap out characters that are going to have benefits on the first turn. For instance, we no longer need Shane, we can go for the advanced version, which is going to be Kenny. And we no longer need Erin, we need more damage output, so we could go for a full Rampage Prayer in this team. As you can see, 100% resist to all confuse here. Doesn't matter how you're modded. Everyone here doesn't have confuse resist, but they have base confuse resist because of that lead skill, obviously. And we can just get the obvious stuff going off the bat. We're going to be able to normalize characters. As you can see, her basic attack came off, and she did hit a rampage because of the rampage that I put on her weapon. But you can see that the normalize on the character in the top right hand corner, Mr. Lou, he is a payback character, and that is a great character to actually hit the normalize on. And we're going to keep going with this, and we should get a natural rush on Andrea, and I should be able to just rush the line up top now. As much as it's full HP, I'll be able to rush it, and then you can see, this is the benefits of having combo characters. The issue we've got here, of course, is this character has got Outlast. So we can normalize her first, and then we can command, and then we can just hit the rush afterwards. This is a turn 2, but it is going to be fairly consistent with the normalized weapon, which I like a lot. But the downside is you are going to see dramatically reduced attack stat on Magna herself, because you are sacrificing 1 1535 weapon to put Rampage in the hands of Priya, and her damage is even going to be quite reduced because she's not going to be surrounded by 4 characters with 1535. She's only going to have 1, which is Rick. In that setup in particular, Andrea was extremely important to get that rolling. As you saw, like the extra AP gain, it would just be a turn 3 otherwise. You could just hit the normalize on Tanya on the second turn from Magna on a basic attack. Make sure you control or take out Rick so he's not commanding people, or you could hit the normalize on Rick. That would be a perfect way to go, because obviously if you normalize Rick, no more commands. If you have got a double Magna setup, obviously just put another Magna where Priya is, and then what you could do is you could normalize a payback and then do a first turn command rush with the second Magna, and if it has the elusive from Kenny's active, no AP gain for any of those characters, and potentially taking out 1 or 2 without too much of a problem. So those are my ideas for S Class Magna, how to get her rolling on a first turn team, or at least an extremely quick winning team. The issue you've got is when you come up against multiple specialists. It's pretty much as simple as that. I see her being such a great character in arenas where you can actually see what you're attacking, but in these effectively like shadow teams in raid and war, it can be a bit more problematic. So I go a bit more for percentage wins, and that would be having a normalized weapon in her hands, but Rampage definitely has the benefits. As you saw, even though she didn't have double attack, she still took out all 3 characters by herself with a Rampage weapon with the normalize. So it's definitely still high potential damage in that. 1535s are required just to be surround her, get that attack stat up as high as possible. But I think you can utilize this character and just have a lot of fun. It's very, very fun to use characters that do a lot of attack damage and get things done real quick. And I can see anyone who got their hands on Magna just basically, she's effectively going to be able to farm you coins in arenas. Obviously when you raid quite a bit faster, and down the line could have extra usages just because of her bleed resistance that she brings in if any bleed meta defense characters come out in the future other than Mr. Loot. But those are my ideas. Do give me your thoughts. How would you switch things up? This is of course just my opinion, so if you have any opinions of your own, please leave them down in the comments. That is going to be the end of my video. I'm going to thank you very much for tuning in, and as always, keep on surviving, guys. Keep on surviving.